and try and get our microgreens as close as possible. So, I mean, that's another aspect of the business and a bigger picture of OFE microgreens, trying to make a what you call it, a business niche sort of thing, just a business that can cater for it. And it, with us starting it off, we can take the data and we can prove, to the banks, we can prove to the, the buyers or the franchise that we can supply and we can give contracts and we can get people to buy your microgreens. All you have to do is just grow it, watch it, pack it, and then send it, sort of thing. It's just kind of like a production line, automating it is where we're at. We're trying to get into the hydroponic scene, automate the water. So all you have to do is sprinkle the seeds on the trays, and we're looking at different types of medium. We want to try and move away from soil because soil is, the biggest cost for our operation. It's just non-stop. We're buying sacks and sacks of potting mix. And the sad thing is that we only use it once and it's no good. And then we have to wait 6 months to either compost it and then try and reuse it. 9 times out of 10, it doesn't. You end up with a different, with the same sort of seeds growing from the last batch in your sunflowers sort of thing. So you get a pea growing up. So you don't want that.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you were selling. So what we try and do is instead of recycling it, we sell it on to the next, person that would want it for their gardens and stuff, because it'll be much better to have, radishes growing than weed, natural weed. So instead of them picking out, weed, you're picking out edibles because it's quite clean. Because what we do is we clean the soil before we start using, so we just give it a bit of a pH watering, and then we just let it soak and sit. And because I mean, if anything, we're trying to make it as clean as possible, but it's dirt sort of thing.
Yeah. So that just to sell it on, because obviously you can't use it. But that's interesting, man.
Yeah.
So what's the alternative to your soil then? If you don't,
Well, there's a number of different alternatives. I mean, at the moment, there's cocoa fibers. There's cocoa soil. There's mesh.
Are these cheaper alternatives?
Well, no, I wouldn't say cheaper, just different types. But again, those come off with its own sort of challenges.
But you can reuse them again and again.
Yeah. So there's some mats that are kind of like the fly. What do you call it? It's probably a bad example, but the netting on a fly stopper, those doors. I'm not sure what the name is, but you can grow on those mesh, sprinkling your seeds on, as long as it doesn't fall through the holes. You've got the right dimensions and you just missed it. That they can grow. It just needs something to latch on and a good, spritz of water, and you can have them grow on a normal mesh without soil.
So that seems like the best way then.
It is, but it dries out a lot quicker. So if you're going to do that, what you want to do is make sure that when you start the process off, you want to make sure that your seeds are, nice and moist, because it won't, it needs water to germinate. But if you spritz it and then it dries up too fast, it's never going to grow properly.
Right.
And you'll always have this data sheet that just goes up and down, and the seed's never going to grow properly to its full potential. Whereas if you have that data, you can actually, automate a spray system that just automatically sprays it.
That's the cost. That'll be the cost.
Yeah, so you just have all these little eyelets just on top of your trays, pss, 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 kind of thing, every 5-10 minutes sort of thing. But that's, again, costs money, but the idea's there. It's been proven over the States. It does work. There's heaps of different technologies. We've got hemp fiber is another one. Bamboo fiber is used in there. Recycled paper.
Paper?
Paper.
Wow.
People use a lot of recyclable, material to try and grow their microgreens on. We haven't done it, but I mean, a lot of the hobbyists tend to find innovative ideas to try and, recycle things. Especially the organic lovers. They're really into their reproducing and recycling, and just being really health conscious about what they put in their bodies. But there's different ways. There's different types of ways of growing. You know, you got hydroponic, aeroponics, where you use air droplets. So it's just a spray around the roots. You've got just I can't think of them all, but you're using NFT drain lines where you can just put your trays on and the water just gushes through and it just keeps flowing. And you've got microgreens that grow in soilless sort of channels.
So with the soil option, that's the easiest one to do.
Yeah, it's what everyone does, and
just like accessible, eh?
yeah,
More
and
accessible.
and it's a lot easier at the moment. But once you start getting into the hydroponics, the kit's a lot more expensive, but it does save money in the long run. So we want to try and get up to that stage, and just pop the trays in, let them sit, let them grow, and then pull them out, cut them, and then repeat, sort of thing. Whereas our process with soil is fill the tray up, stamp it down, sprinkle the seeds, water it, then cover it, and then wait, kind of thing. And then we get the process of getting the microgreens starting to germinate.
So how long does it take for you sprinkle the seed until it to grow into a size where you can now package it?
It
How long does
depends
that
on the variety. So for us,
so these are different times. All these.
no. So for us, we've chosen the variety that meets our turnaround time. So we've gone and chosen microgreens that take 8 days, 6 to 8 days to grow. So anywhere between 6 to 8 days, we're ready to harvest. Just because we run on a weekly sort of turnaround. So markets happen every week. So we want to try and have a product ready. So we just try and calculate per tray what we need, and we can usually go with anywhere between 6 to 12 kgs of goods, and then process that. There are microgreens that can take up to 2 weeks to grow, and that's cilantro takes about 2 weeks, which is the coriander version.
I guess this will be the most popular one.
It is the popular one, but it takes the longest to grow, and it's because of the popularity. We've put it on our variety range. But again, that's when you're thinking about real estate, because we use vertical farming, so we're using shelves to stage our trays of seeds, and we're working on an 8-day process. Whereas if we're occupying the top shelf with cilantro, they're not going to move for another 14 days, and so you potentially lose out on a product that could be going twice. Whereas cilantro is basically highly required sort of variety. You have to grow it, kind of thing, because you want to add it to your mixes. You want to cater for the demand that's actually out there.
So how many trays would you do for cilantro, like on a weekly basis? So you have to put one. You can start growing 1 week, and then the next week can start growing the next one. So
yeah,
at
so
the
you
end of
have
the
that,
year, it gets
so you have
it
that
comes,
cycle
yeah,
going.
cycle
Yeah.
every weekend.
So when on in my process area, we've got one germination side, and then we have the light photosynthesis side, so where the lights and where the magic happens, sort of thing. Because microgreens only take 2 or 3 days in the sunlight before they're ready to harvest. So they don't spend a lot of time under the sun. It's mostly during the period when they're trying to stretch, and what we call dark mode. So where there's a phase where we put them out blackout, and then we put them in a weighted state. So we put a tray on top of another tray with the soil in between after we've sowed the seeds, and then we put a bit of weight on top of it to what's the word that I'm looking for? To make it feel like it's soil on top, but you don't want to put soil on top. What's the word? Emulate, I suppose.
Oh yeah,
Because
because it's a living thing, eh? So
Yeah.
it feels like.
And you
Oh.
don't want to to dry out too much, so you want to keep it covered, sort of thing. So emulates the fact that it's soil, but it's not. So once the seed starts to germinate, it starts to look for a place to look for light. So after 3 to 4 days, you open it up and it's in its sprout version. So this is where another sort of product comes out. That's where you get your sprouts like your alfalfa and your mung beans. But they grow those in a jar, by the way. So at that process, it becomes a sprout. And then you wait another 3 or 4 days after that, and then it becomes a microgreen. But in between that, you want to try and monitor how long you want to put it in the soil sort of state. And then once it starts to, grow, and you flip the tray over, put it in a process called dark mode, where it's just trying to emulate it, the feeling of it in a dark place. And then it starts to stretch and starts to grow towards, using gravity, more or less.
Right.
And then you remove the tray after 1 or 2 days. You find them that they're stretching like at least an inch or two. And then you put them under the sun, and then, under the grow lights, and then they start the photosynthesis process to start greening them up.
Oh, yeah.
And then
wow. Shucks.
it starts to, that's when you start harvesting them. But again, if you leave them out too long, then the parent leaves start to develop, and it just starts to become really bitter kind of thing. But, so it's an art form of trying to, harvest at the right time, but you don't want to harvest too early because you don't want to have your product deteriorate fast on you kind of thing, because you've got a 2-week window. Because for microgreens, can sit nicely and comfortably in the fridge for up to 2 weeks, but for us, we want to keep our safe levels within a week, and we aim to think that using the right amount, the right packaging size or weight will give the consumer just enough for that week without the product sitting around in the fridge.